Welcome to the WIDA Accommodations training for teachers and test administrators, otherwise known as TAs. This training is intended to support teachers and TAs in the management of testing accommodations and to minimize the use of inappropriate accommodations during test administration. Remember that for successful management of accommodations, test administrators must be familiar with the students they serve for the test administration. WIDA Access is the annual English language proficiency assessment given to Indiana students in grades K-12 who are identified as English learners or ELs. Per ESSA, no EL student is exempt from participating in the annual English language proficiency assessment, including ELs with disabilities. Kindergarten Access is the paper-based assessment for all ELs in kindergarten. Please note that this assessment requires some local scoring by the test administrator. Access for ELs is the assessment most ELs in grades 1 through 12 will take. The primary test mode for this assessment is online. The writing domain is administered via paper test booklet in grades 1 through 3. Paper testing for all domains is available only as a documented accommodation for ELs with disabilities or via an approved non-standard assessment accommodation request for ELs without disabilities. Alternate access is the paper-based assessment for ELs with severe intellectual disabilities in grades 1 through 12. ELs who meet IM participation criteria will participate in alternate access. Please note that like kindergarten access, alternate access also requires some local scoring by the test administrator. WIDA assessments are designed for ELs. Therefore, most students will not receive accommodations on these assessments. Please note the following. Accommodations included in an individual learning plan, ILP, are not permitted on WIDA assessments. Accommodations for WIDA assessments are available to ELs with disabilities as documented in their formal plan, such as an individualized education program, service plan, choice special education plan, or Section 504 plan. Paper testing can also be requested for ELs without disabilities due to religious reasons or for refugee students with limited or no formal education or exposure to technology. A non-standard accommodation request must be submitted to IDOE for approval. The 2020-2021 Accessibility and Accommodations Guidance can be found on the Office of Student Assessment's website. It is also linked on this slide. This guidance document provides information on supports, tools, accessibility features, and accommodations that can be provided to students for each state assessment, including WIDA assessments. Refer to Section 4, WIDA Access and Alternate Access for information specific to WIDA assessments. This slide shows WIDA's Accessibility and Accommodations Framework. WIDA designed this framework to ensure application of effective linguistic scaffolding and universal design principle to the development of test items, availability of flexible administrative considerations and universal tools for all ELs, and purposeful design and delivery of accommodations for ELs with disabilities. WIDA provides guidance for how to best support ELs by taking WIDA assessments through the Accessibility and Accommodation Supplement, which is linked on this slide. The supplement was developed to help educators understand and use the test administration considerations, universal tools, and accommodations for individual English learners in order to produce valid assessment results. Section 4 of IDOE's Accessibility and Accommodations Guidance highlights the accessibility features and accommodations as they pertain to Indiana state policy. WIDA's Accessibility and Accommodation Supplement provides more in-depth information about specific administrative considerations, universal tools, and accommodations available on WIDA assessments. This accommodations and corresponding codes for WIDA assessments are shown here. As noted, availability of these accommodations vary by test domain and format, online and paper. Please see IDOE's Accessibility and Accommodations Guidance and WIDA's Accessibility and Accommodations Supplement for detailed information on each available accommodation. IDOE approved 2 new WIDA-specific accommodations for 2020-2021. The WIDA Access Writing Test domain is administered via paper in grades 1 through 3 for both online and paper testers. For online testers in grades 4 through 12, a handwriting accommodation is now available for the writing domain. Writing test items will still be accessed via the online platform, but the students will record a handwritten response in a writing response booklet rather than typing a response. Please note that online testers submitted via the DOETL will by default be placed in a regular online writing test session. In WIDA AMS, the district or school testing coordinator user must remove students with this accommodation from the regular writing online session and instead assign them to a handwriting online session. An additional materials order must be placed at the district level for writing response booklets. The second new accommodation applies to students whose disability prevents meaningful participation in one or more test domains. For example, a student that is deaf and is unable to participate in listening. Exempt accommodations must be marked separately in a student's formal plan. Example, exempt listening, exempt reading, exempt speaking, exempt writing. The impacted domain test or tests must be manually marked as do not score with code SPD to indicate this is a special education exemption in order to generate an overall composite score and proficiency level. For online tests, this must be marked in WIDA AMS. For paper tests, this must be marked on the cover of the paper test booklet. A student who is missing more than 2 domains cannot receive an overall composite score or proficiency level. Please note that these new accommodations are Indiana specific and not indicated in a student's WIDA AMS profile. They cannot be submitted via the DOETL, nor can IDOE report them to WIDA DRC through the pre-ID student data file. These accommodations must be documented in a student's formal plan, IEP, service plan, CSEP, or Section 504 plan. A non-standard accommodation request form must be submitted to report students with these accommodations to the Office of Student Assessment. This is to help ensure that students are marked correctly in WIDA AMS. Student data and accommodations are initially populated in WIDA AMS through 2 sources, DOETL records and Indiana IEP. The DOETL is used to report all English learners participating in WIDA Access annual assessments. Section 504 plan and Choice Special Education Plan accommodations are included as part of this data submission. The DOETL data submission window occurred September 28th to October 14th, 2020. Please note that this is a required data submission. Late submissions cannot be accepted. Data reported will populate students in test sessions in WIDA AMS and generate initial materials orders, such as paper test materials, including kindergarten access, alternate access, grades 1 through 3 writing, large print, and Braille, pre-ID student and district school labels, and return shipping materials. IEP and service plan accommodations were extracted from the Indiana IEP system based on finalized IEPs on October 16, 2020. IDOE provided the student and accommodations data to DRC to be populated in WIDA AMS. Initial materials orders, including standard print, large print, and Braille assessments, were also generated based on the data submitted to DRC. Please note the following. ELs not reported via the DOETL must be manually added in WIDA AMS and assigned to online test sessions as applicable. Changes to student demographics and accommodations data after October 16, 2020 must be manually updated in WIDA AMS. Student management and test management functionality in WIDA AMS for the 2020-2021 Access Administration became available on December 2nd, 2020. An additional materials order, AMO, may be needed for English learners not reported by October 16th, 2020. The AMO window is open January 6th through February 24th, 2021. There are only 3 online accommodations listed on the test ticket and test roster: manual control of item audio, MC, repeat item audio, RA, and extended speaking response time, ES. Note, not applicable, NA, listed in the accommodations field is used for all accommodations outside of the 3 online accommodations. Any test booklet that contains student responses must have either a pre-ID label or a district school label with bubbled student information in order to be processed for scoring. Pre-ID labels contain the student's name, grade, and other pertinent information, as well as district and school information. The barcode on the label indicates that the test booklet should be processed and scored for the student whose name is printed on the label. These labels eliminate the need to bubble student information on the front and back cover of the test booklet. Student information embedded in the pre-ID label supersedes that which is bubbled on the test booklet. Therefore, if pre-ID label information is incorrect, it must be updated in WIDA AMS. Please note that a test booklet with a pre-ID label must still have the date of testing bubbled in on the front cover. If a pre-ID label is not available, then a district school label must be affixed to the test booklet and student information accurately in on the front and back cover. Errors may result in incorrect, late, or no reporting of scores for the affected students. Please note that failure to affix a pre-ID or district school label will result in test booklets being processed as unused and no score assigned. For test booklets with pre-ID labels, accommodations should be marked in WIDA AMS under Student Management. If accommodations are marked in WIDA AMS, then it is not necessary to bubble the accommodation section on the back cover of the test booklet. Please note that if an accommodation was indicated in error and not provided to the student, it should be removed from both WIDA AMS and the test booklet. For students with district school labels, accommodations provided to a student must be bubbled in the accommodation section on the back cover. Please note that test coordinators are responsible for preparing paper test materials prior to distributing those materials for testing. This includes ensuring that the appropriate label is affixed and student demographics information is accurately bubbled on the front and back cover of the test booklet as applicable. Test coordinators are also responsible for updating student demographic and accommodations data in WIDA AMS. If student information is incorrect on a pre-ID label or is incorrectly bubbled on the front or back cover, please inform your CTC or STC so that corrections can be made. Student information and accommodations can be viewed under the Manage Student tab in WIDA AMS Student Management. TAs have the ability to view student information and accommodations in WIDA AMS. However, only district and school testing coordinator users have permissions to edit student information and accommodations. As mentioned on the previous slide, contact your CTC or STC if student information and/or accommodations are incorrect and need updated in WIDA AMS. It is important to provide English learners opportunities to become familiar with the test format, item types, and procedural aspects of test taking before the test administration. These practice opportunities make it likely that students will be able to focus more effectively on demonstrating what they know and can do on the English language proficiency test. Visit WIDA's Preparing Students webpage for several resources for preparing students for WIDA assessment, as well as a link to access the test demo, test practice, and sample items. Released items for the paper-based assessments are also available at this webpage. Additionally, WIDA AMS provides test demonstration videos that may be used by educators to help English learners gain a better understanding of how they will interact with the online test platform. These videos provide step-by-step demonstrations of using the built-in tools, taking the assessment for each language domain, and accessing embedded accommodations. There are several resources that you may find helpful in best understanding the WIDA assessments and accommodations. You can use the links to access each document or web page for further review. This slide contains contact information for IDOE, WIDA Client Services, and DRC Customer Service. Please contact us if you have any additional questions that were not addressed in this training. Thank you.